Okay, hello, good morning, good morning. I'm in Greenwich Park today, as you can see. It's Canary Wharf over there, some more of London over there, and beautiful green, and the sun is coming up quite nicely behind those trees, which is good for me because I'm a ginger person and I've got quite pale skin and the sun burns me, and I haven't put my sun cream on today, so I'm hiding in the shade. Now, I've just run to Greenwich Park from Deptford. I live right next to Deptford Park. And I came here this morning and I thought I was going to do hill runs. And I was running along and I got to the park and I sort of thought, I'm not sure if I actually want to do hill runs today. Now, it's curious because I've done training my whole life and trained to a very, very high level. And a lot of the time in training you don't actually want to do the training. You have this like, oh no, I don't want to do it, I really don't. But actually it's the right thing to do it. But what was curious this morning was that as I approached my first hill, I'd run all the way here and I was walking along the path, looking at all of the green and thinking to myself how much I wanted to just sit down and be here in this green and in this peace. And I had this sensation as I was walking along the path that I was on this path and I was walking, and it was like there was tension and there was gripe within me as I was walking along this path, and there was something which felt as though it would be impossible to get out of this gripe. But then I noticed this, and I know that this wasn't me, this tension. I know that it wasn't part of my own true expression, which is just the still, quiet silence, as my teacher always tells me, Julia. And I felt it sort of shrug off, and I saw how pretty the grass was and how I could just sit down on it if I want to. And I was coming up to my first hill at this point, and I was thinking, I don't have to run up this hill. I don't have to do this hill if I don't want to. And then I looked to my right, I think, and I saw another hill that was going up towards these trees, and there was this little sort of like woodland path, and I thought that's the hill I want to go up. So I decided not to do hill runs this morning, and I walked on up this green and I thought, oh, this is good, this is good, this is very, very good. This is a beautiful place to be. And I knew that I wanted to do a video this morning because I ran this morning with a rucksack, and I don't usually run with a rucksack because I wanted to bring my camera and my stand, which is what I'm holding right now. Because I actually wanted to make a video about flexibility, because I'm a coach and trainer and teacher of gymnastics, calisthenics and flexibility, and today I wanted to talk about flexibility. And there's a really interesting thing that came up even in my journey here this morning, which is that to be flexible is to be able to, in reference to the body, is to be able to move your joints through a wide range of motion without experiencing resistance. Like you can just do it, flow your body around super easily. And what I think a lot of us experience in relation to flexibility is more this kind of like physical barrier, like this sort of like seize up, this stretch on the edge of your range of movement. I think people who are hypermobile have a different experience because their joints just fly around all over the place. And they have to be careful in a different way. But for a lot of people, flexibility is quite relative to pain, a painful lack of flexibility or an inability to go where they would really like to go. Now, for me, when I was starting as an acrobatic gymnast and I was going to compete, I knew that flexibility was going to be very, very important for me, and that I needed to be able to do things like the splits. I needed to be able to touch my chest down to the floor with my legs either side of my ears. And so I just got to work, I got to stretching. And the way that I went about it was to just stretch. I went into my bedroom. I was growing up at this time in my parents' house, and I stretched away like most days, and I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. I just pressed it down to the floor, and to be fair, it worked. I think I was young and I was strong, and my body was receptive to the training. So that worked for me. But what I find in working with people now, later on, when it came to working with other people's flexibility, is that the pressing method, like, it doesn't really work in the way that you want it to, because even if you do develop more range as I did, you're always still banging up against that edge of your flexibility, and the experience is one of being incapable to move where you want to move, which is really interesting. Like, so for example, with my gymnastics, I developed splits in both directions. So with both legs forward, that's called right and left leg splits, and I developed my box splits. But they were largely always quite painful for me to be in, and there would always be a sensation that they weren't quite flexible enough, that there needed to be more and more. And what's interesting is this was actually kind of a reflection of where I was at with my gymnastics competing anyway, in that for me, competing in gymnastics was not something I really wanted to do with the whole of my soul, I suppose. It was more like something I was trying to get out of. I was trying to do so well on a certain level. I was trying to do so well that eventually one day someone would say, "Well done, you're done, you can stop." But obviously that never happens, and ultimately it was me who decided to stop. But that's not to say that I don't love doing the gymnastic skills, and it's not even to say that I don't love doing the splits and things like that. But it was that even though I'd become quote unquote very flexible, my experience was still one of being trapped, of not quite being able to do exactly what I wanted to do. And I feel that those two things are quite interlinked, because to become flexible is wanting to be able to move exactly how you want to, or there's a component of becoming flexible, which is that you want to be able to express yourself in your movement exactly how you want to. And now, I suppose that doesn't necessarily mean you want to be a gymnast. It doesn't mean you want to do the splits, but perhaps you're experiencing this resistance feeling, this tight edge feeling within your movement. If you are a runner, because there's a lot of runners in my family, which I've talked about before, and I know that tightness and tension can come into the running stride and impinge the flight sensation, which is the beautiful freedom of running, the feeling of just flying along. In other sports, I know that I've worked with martial artists who, and this is an interesting one, because there are martial artists who kick really high, and that in its sense is kind of similar to gymnastics, in that it's like, oh, I've obviously got to be able to kick this person in the head, I need to be able to get my legs open to a split. But you could very much fall into the same trap of like jamming your splits open, trying to get them really, really tight, really, really open, but in that moment sort of forcing yourself up against an edge. Whereas I'm talking more about some jiu-jitsu athletes who I worked with, and we worked on the strength within their hips and their capacity to express force through the joint, which had surprising effect, because what their experience was that they felt stronger. So they were freer to move, but when they were in exaggerated positions where they were dealing with another person putting force upon them and trying to do complicated things in themselves and roll in strange directions, they felt stronger, they felt in more command of their body, and like their limbs and their body would obey their will more directly. And what's really curious there is what we actually did was quite a bit of strength work. So it's really interesting how there seems to be I want to use the word, like, there's like a parallel, or not a parallel, there's in normal thinking there seems to be a disagreement between being strong and being really flexible. Like, someone who is really, really big and strong is automatically not very flexible, and someone who is very, very flexible is not strong. Whereas these things are both sort of ridiculous and untrue, because we know that ballet dancers are ridiculously strong within their bodies and extremely flexible. We know that people like I'm thinking of like Djokovic, a tennis player, famous for being very strong through his rallies, is extremely flexible, and part of what allows him to be so strong and enduring in his rallies is his flexibility. I saw at the Commando Temple where I work, which is a strong person gym. I saw a woman who, there were three of them along to film a documentary, and each of them had a one particular world record. And I can't remember exactly what this particular woman's world record was, but she could do a straddle fold, which is where you sit with your legs like this and you fold your chest down to the floor. And the power that this woman would have been able to create, and the fact that she was that supple, in the same body, it was truly awesome. And so what we got to with working with these jiu-jitsu athletes was more that we took the muscle. If we imagine a muscle as sort of like, I'm sorry, I'm holding the camera, so I can't do my usual theatrics. But if you imagine the muscle as sort of like, it's kind of like a sack sort of thing. And don't quote me scientifically, I'm talking about it like what it looks like, okay? And it's got these two tendons at the ends, and then this sort of red tissuey connecting part in the middle. That if the muscle is strong at both tendon ends, then it can go further and further, and that we should take the muscle to this point of extension. So take yourself just to a place where you're about to start to experience discomfort. You're experiencing a stretch reflex, which is that block that I'm talking about. Now that happens because there are nerves which run down inside the muscle, which know when the muscle fiber is about to tear, and they communicate with your spine directly. So it's not a cognitive thing. It's not something you think. You don't think, oh, I need to seize up my muscle. It's like breathing or your heart beating. Your muscle senses that it will tear, and it tightens up. Now what we have, why would it tear? Why would a muscle tear? Because it's not strong enough to deal with the forces that are acting upon it, so it's going to rip apart. So we need to take the muscle to the place where it's experiencing this resistance, this "oh no, I don't want to," and make it feel strong there. Show it that it's able to express force there, because that's what strength truly is. It's my favourite thing that Ross Edgley says, the guy who swam all the way around Great Britain, says that strength is the body's ability to generate force. And I know that that's not not Ross's own thing. That's a scientific thing, but I love the way that he puts it. So, and I like to use the term express force. When I was in China training at Shaolin, it wasn't monks, it was like martial arts academy, Shaolin martial arts academy when I was 19. They talked a lot about expressing power, about sort of building, and then like blowing, punching out, exploding out, and it made me think of Dragon Ball. But I love this term, express force or express power. So because it comes back to this mirroring of your body being an instrument of your will. You want to be able to express yourself. This brings us right back around to why did you want to become more flexible in the first place? You feel that you can't express yourself in the way that you need to, and you understand that you need a bit more range. And this is where it comes into a way that I really like to think about it, which is that, and again couples with the spiritual learning that I've learned, that what my teachers have taught me, is that we create the space around us. Your body engenders the space around it. If you imagine that, imagine there's like a bubble around your body, and it's like a human body shaped bubble, but in like an ideal world, there's like 360 degrees in all directions around you of places that your body could go. Now, for me, like for example, so I can get my arm to here, and then I can move it all the way back around to there. But then there's sort of like a block at that point, and then I can move it up around here. So I've got sort of what I would describe as like this physiological blind spot, sort of around my back when it comes to the range of movement of my shoulders. Now, for some people, that's not so much the case. Oh, there's a dog. Lovely, lovely dog. You come to say hello. Hello, doggy. Don't think it wants to say hello. Okay, so yeah, there's sort of this physiological blind spot. Now, for some people, that blind spot is way more open, like for an Olympic swimmer. I was watching them the other day with their arms flying around, and they've got so much space and room. And I know that part of that is what allows them to create this catch, which lets them pull themselves through the water and get up to such unbelievable speeds. But if we think of like not so much the body, the mass of the body, but as the space around the body, as being the describer of a person's range of movement or your flexibility, what space can you create around yourself? that allows, with our swimmer analogy, allows them to express force back in that direction. Okay, so it's creating a space in which you can express force. And that's where it comes back round to what is it that you really want to be able to do? Can you see it? Because if you can see it, then you can do it, and you will be able to find your way to greater flexibility, to greater range of movement, and that is a simple matter of doing exercises. Like that's the stuff of the body is quite simple. If you do the right exercises, then your body will adapt. The body is amazing, and it will adapt extremely quickly. It may still take a long time for you to get to where you want to go, but you will be on a journey where your experience is that you are moving to where you're living the fact that you are eventually going to be able to do what you want to do. It's an inevitability. It's more this banging up against the edge that will impede you, particularly in relation to this flexibility. If you are pushing to be able to get to where you want to be, then even if you actually do get to where you want to be, like I did with my acrobatic gymnastics, like I got to be able to do the splits, but what I was doing on the way there was pushing. And so when I could visibly do the splits in the world, I didn't think I was done. You know, it felt like there was more to be done. I'm not finished yet. I've got to do more. Because all the while I was trying to get there. I was trying to push to be where I wanted to be, rather than settling into an understanding that I would inevitably end up where I wanted to be if I did my exercises nicely, and allowing that reality of doing the splits to flow into itself. Now, what I experience in my splits now is that my body will just go into them. I can just do the splits whenever I want to. For my left leg and my right leg. For me, the box splits, I think for my body, it doesn't really want to go all the way down. There's sort of like a bit of range where it goes, I'll go here, but I really don't like it. And yeah, so that's because I did do the exercises in the world, right? So there were sort of two things at play, which is why it was sort of like confusing, and I think can be confusing for people who are training on a high level. Is like objectively you can do the thing, but you still experience this battle to be somewhere else. And what's sort of interesting about that whole space thing that I was coming back to is that it's impossible to be anywhere else other than where you truly are in your body. You can only be right here in your body, but you can engender around you whatever space you want. And I mean that in a physiological way and in a spiritual life way. You can live the life that you want to live, and you can create the space around your body that you want. And it might be that if you look around yourself and you see that you need to be able to create a different space, and at the moment it's going to be a stretch. It's going to require stretching, development, and growth. Then that is the work towards being able to create that position that engenders that space. But if we bring it back to specifically to the flexibility, this doesn't mean that you have to do the splits. Being flexible or having good range of movement means that you'll be able to move more easily, and be less. You won't experience such a resistance in your body. Your body will be happy to do the things that you want it to do. Sorry, I was looking at a pigeon. I thought it was going to come and hit me. You'll fly along whilst you're running. In your martial arts, your body you'll be able to read it. You'll be able to read the situation better, because the stronger we are in our core, and the stronger we are in all of our joints, the quicker the messaging is, and the faster we're able to express our will through our body. So really, for me, when it comes to being a coach of flexibility, it's being a coach of actually having someone come into to their core, strengthen the core, and then strengthen all of the joints, and do work to help their body become expansive, so that your body is trending towards reaching outwards as opposed to pushing outwards. So from here, you're centered in this place that you can only inevitably be, but your body is expressing itself outwards and creating more and more space around it always. So really, a journey towards flexibility is one which never ends, because it's more a behavior. We're trying to cultivate a behavior in your body to be expansive, to enthusiastically get on board with going to the places that you want to go, that you want to will it to go. And part of that is knowing when not to push, or knowing which hill you really want to climb up, like I did this morning. And I got to climb up here and I got to make this video, which was really, really great fun. And now I'm going to run back to the Commando Temple where I work, and I'm going to do a little bit of stretching myself. So I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope you've really enjoyed watching the video.